beautiful people. We are so glad you're here. Give us 1 second while we connect Instagram, and then we will be ready to go. I am really excited about this. And it looks like, yeah, are we? Yep, we're connected now. Okay, very good. Well, hello, beautiful people, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jennifer Diamond, and I'm a certified plant-based nutrition coach living a whole food, plant-exclusive lifestyle for health and well-being. And today I have a special guest that I am so excited to welcome. Welcome back, actually. It's Cyd Potter. And Cyd is a seasoned certified nutrition educator and author of an award-winning book called The Plan A Diet, combining whole food plant-based nutrition with the timeless wisdom of scripture, and founder of the Plan A Academy. She has taught thousands of people how to successfully adopt a whole food plant-based lifestyle to achieve safe, permanent weight loss and improved health without calorie counting or portion control or willpower struggles. So let's say hello to Cyd. And Cyd, welcome here. It's so great to have you on again.
Thanks, Jennifer. I was so looking forward to today. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it was fun. We did, let's see, the last time we were together, we were promoting the 2025 Vegan Health Bundle, which I really enjoyed. Although what you and I did was pre-recorded, and that was because you were traveling. And so I'm really excited about today's topic, which is tips for safe and permanent weight loss, because there is so much misinformation and like old wives' tales about how to lose weight that's sustainable and, good for our health. Wouldn't you believe?
Oh, you're right. So much misinformation out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So if there's anything that I didn't share about what you do or anything extra you would love to add to that, I would love to give you this opportunity to share anything more, or we can start. I know you have a presentation, so you kind of let me know what works.
Yeah, well, we can get started. I'm a Food for Life instructor as well for Dr. Barnard. So that's kind of a new thing for me about a year now. So I'm still getting my feet wet with classes for Dr. Barnard, but that's fun.
Yeah, and so can you take a second and just kind of share, what does that mean exactly?
Well, you know PCRM, which stands for the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. So, as a Food for Life instructor, you get to present the PCRM materials along with some cooking demos, and there's classes on cancer and hormones and diabetes and all kind of great things. So, it's just a great way to get your community involved, and I'm enjoying that.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because I know that people might be interested in that information. And so, yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, so today I'm going to talk about permanent safe weight loss with no dieting required. And a lot of this might be old news to many of your followers, but there's a lot of great information in here too that I think anyone could learn from today. So, should we get started?
Sure. Yes. And we have your share up, your share screen, and I see everything here. And so whenever you're ready, we're excited. I'm excited. But I guess I should take a minute just to say hello in the chat. We've got Plant Powered Peddler Janet here. She says, looking forward to listening in. Hi, Janet. We've got Core Scorpy with some beautiful emojis. Hi, Jill Caperton is here. Hi, everyone. Hi, Jennifer and Todd. And so anyone else, anytime during this, if you have a question or a comment, please go ahead and put it in the chat, and we will get it answered or addressed as soon as we can. And we are really grateful that all of you are here. So yeah, whenever you're ready, Cyd, I'm ready too.
Okay, well, my little disclaimer that I say before every presentation is that the materials presented here are for general dietary information only and should not be construed as personal medical advice, right? These are just general tips here today. So if you are struggling with weight loss, and many people are, even in the plant-based world, you are not alone, because being overweight is a normal response to eating abnormal foods, right? It's the foods, basically.
Yeah.
Um, Diets don't work because they're just not sustainable for the most part. So instead, we want to choose a long term lifestyle, which includes the right foods. So that's what we need to do because when we go on a diet, that implies that we're going to go off that diet at some point and return to the old patterns, most likely. So that's one reason why the diet industry takes in, I think it's around $50 billion a year. You know how January, it's the same replay, all the weight loss plans, it's like a repeat business for many people. And their business models are based on that, actually.
Wow.
So let's take a snapshot look here at where we are as a country right now. It's estimated that 45 million Americans do go on a diet every year, and billions of dollars are spent on weight loss efforts. Yet, in spite of all the diet plans and all the money spent, our obesity rates sadly continue to climb in the country. So the US is ranked 12th in the world as far as obesity rates go, but number one among the countries with the higher income category. So we are rated as the most obese country when it comes to the higher income category. So it's obvious that what we're doing is not working. So here is a breakdown of what Americans are typically eating. This is the standard American diet, right? This isn't us because if we're following a whole food plant-based diet, but those that are following a standard American diet are getting 60 to 65% of their calories from highly processed food and junk food and fast food, 25 to 30% animal foods, and less than 10% from whole plant foods. The number one source of calories in America today are refined grains and refined carbs, basically, such as white flour and grain based desserts, cakes, cookies, pies, pastries, white bread, hot dog buns, pizza and crackers, granola bars, chips, and so much more. And it's interesting because just for the bundle, I created a label reading class, which I had been working on for a long time, and during the research for that, I discovered that 75% of the foods on our grocery store shelves are considered ultra processed food. So that is where many of the calories are coming from in the American diet. The number two source of calories are animal based foods like beef, chicken, fish, cheese, milk, and yogurt. So that's number two. I'm sorry, is added fats. I'm sorry, I skipped over. So number two would be the added fats and oils like butter, margarine, olive oil, canola oil. Number three is the meat and dairy with the beef, chicken, cheese, milk, and yogurt. And number four would be added sugars, ice cream, soda, energy drinks, alcohol, and desserts. So each one of these four biggest sources of calories are highly inflammatory foods that contribute to weight gain and poor health in a number of ways. And we are consuming so many refined grains right now and added fats and sugars that pediatricians are now advised to have the French fry discussion with parents at their child's 12-month checkup because the goal is to wait until a child is 2 years old before they start eating these foods, but studies show that now two-thirds of infants are being fed junk food before their first birthday. So that's a sad statistic. So this is where we currently are as a country. Where do we go from here? So lifelong weight control and good health require four permanent things that we need to do, especially if we do not want a short term restrictive diet, right? Dropping pounds isn't always the problem. Sometimes people can lose weight, but the problem is to keep it off. That's where the difficulty often comes in. So, to lose the weight and keep it off, here are four things that are needed for long term success. First of all, is it sustainable? In other words, is this something you can comfortably do for the long haul? Or will you be destined to eat small portions and feel deprived or hungry? Because that's not going to work, right? As I mentioned earlier, if you're going on a diet, that often means that we'll go off the diet at some point and return to the previous eating patterns. So ask yourself if the new way of eating is going to serve you well for many years. Number two, is it nutritionally sound? Will you be getting the protein and carbs and fat and calcium and fiber and vitamins and minerals and antioxidants that you need in the right amounts? And that's important in order to function well. So, does the new plan ask you to purchase supplements or powders or things in order to meet your nutritional needs? And if so, why is that? Why are you not getting that nutrition from the foods? The third thing is the new plan based on unbiased science? And this one can be tricky because there are studies out there that back up pretty much any theory or point of view. In order to know if a diet plan is credible, we always have to look at the science that's being referenced and make sure it meets certain criteria. Like, is the research independently funded, for example? Or is the research being paid for by an industry lobby or a food company or a supplement manufacturer or someone who stands to profit from the results? So that is something to keep in mind. I've got a list on my website, 7 ways to evaluate everything you hear or read, so that's something to consider. And the last thing is it safe for my health? Because the majority of diets out there today are anything but good for your long term health. The new eating plan should be able to offer you weight loss without contributing to health problems down the road. And sadly, today's diets, which focus on the high fat, high protein, low carb foods, which are known contributors to serious heart issues, those diet plans. So we don't want to lose weight at the expense of our precious health. The new way of eating should build health, not destroy it. And I like Dr. Michael Greger in his book, How Not to Diet. He made a comment which I thought was pretty funny. He said, the goal of weight loss is not to lighten the load for your pallbearers. I thought that was kind of clever. So, the long term eating plan that can answer all four of those questions with a resounding yes is a whole food, plant based, no added oils diet. So, this way of eating improves the quality of food rather than restricting the quantity of food. So, not less food, but healthier food. So, anything to add there, Jennifer, before we go on?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple questions. So originally on one of the earlier screens, it mentioned abnormal foods, right? And so for people that are on the standard American diet, that food I think is their normal food, right? Especially if we're brought up eating that and that's all we know. So how do we, and you may not even know, but this is like just a question. How do we shift our thinking to redefine what normal is and what is abnormal? I just,
Mm.
you know, I think that there has to be some kind of, you know, learning or something. I don't know. Do you have anything that you might, want to add to that or have an answer for that question?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the health reasons why people would want to make the switch because our bodies are not designed to eat all the highly processed foods. So I think once people understand what the foods are doing to their bodies physically, they might start to realize that what's normal to them is not normal to their bodies functioning. So maybe that would be the disconnect.
Yeah, I like that, and just bringing, of course, awareness, which is what I'm so happy about for you to bring this up. And then we don't have any new questions in the chat, but I also would like to ask two of my own about this beginning, and that is, so do you think that people aren't eating enough plants? There was a portion where he said that they're not eating as many plants if they're eating the standard American diet. I'm wondering, when you eat the standard American diet, it tends to be heavier. You don't need to eat as much of it because it's very high in calories. And I'm wondering if it's that people aren't hungry. It's just something to think about. I was just thinking, gosh, I wonder if that could be a contributor. And if when you try to switch over, then you would notice maybe that you're more hungry and that you can eat more plants. So I was
Mhm.
wondering what your thoughts were regarding that.
Well, that makes sense because the standard American diet does not have very much fiber. And I'm going to talk about that later in the presentation. So maybe they're not feeling full because they're not eating enough fiber, which fills
Yes.
us up.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm
Hmm.
excited to get to that. Last question is I just what is the French fry talk? I mean, I understand what you said about that, but I've never heard of that. And so pediatricians, it's labeled like a topic. So what exactly? How did that become a thing? Just crazy.
Yeah, I think I also discovered that in Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Diet, where I know that many health organizations say that babies should not be fed, junk food before their second birthday for sure. But I see a lot of babies at their first birthday, they're just, cramming cake and all this stuff and eating French fries before their first birthday. So I thought that was important to point out because there's just so many people that are not aware of what they're feeding their babies and how that's going to set them up for a lifetime of maybe even addictions, starting at that very young age. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a real thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting that now the pediatricians have to talk to the parents because I have also seen and heard from people that have done that with their babies, and
Hmm.
giving the French fry or whatever, and they think it's cute. And if
Hmm.
you don't know what is really going on, um, you know, I guess that could be a problem. But, anyways, I do want to say Renee is in the house. Hello, Renee. Else is here saying hello to everybody. And so, yeah, that if nobody else has any questions about that first part of the presentation, I'm done with mine. But I'm enjoying this so far, and thank you.
Sure. Well, then let's press on to we just talked about that a whole food plant based diet meets all of the things needed for successful weight loss. But what does that actually mean? And I'm sure anybody that's watching here as part of your audience, regular audience, knows what that means. But in case you don't know, whole food plant based means eating foods in their whole natural state, as close to nature as possible, with minimal processing. Now, light processing, such as blending and cooking and freezing, all of that is okay, but it's those heavily processed items that we want to avoid. And I did a deep dive into this for the label reading course, the different levels of processing. And just take a potato, for example. A potato is a whole food, but potatoes that have been converted into potato chips is not a whole food, right? Or an apple is a whole food, but when it's processed into an apple Pop Tart, it, of course, is no longer a whole food. So, a whole food plant based diet is also, oops, let me see if I can get my slide to change here. There we go, is not necessarily a vegan diet. And what I mean by that is that a vegan diet can technically include things like Fritos and Oreos and even certain Sara Lee pies, and none of which is being promoted here as part of a healthy whole food plant based plan. So everything we're eating is vegan, but a whole food plant based plan is easier. I mean, is much healthier because it's just avoiding a lot of the vegan junk food. So, one of the biggest steps when it comes to long term weight loss is to learn the difference between calories and calorie density. Calorie counting is not the way to go because it's often very inaccurate. It takes a lot of time and effort and a lot of willpower, and it often results in eating these tiny little portions that aren't going to fill us up. So, over time, it's not sustainable because we're hungry, right? And who wants to be hungry? Nobody does. Calorie density, on the other hand, refers to the number of calories in any given weight of food, typically a pound of food. So, foods that are high in calorie density have a large number of calories per pound, whereas foods low in calorie density have fewer number of calories per pound. Here's how certain foods weigh in when we look at the calories per pound. So, fruits, veggies, potatoes, whole grains, beans, legumes, whole grain pasta between 100 and 600 calories per pound, avocados 750, animal foods, ice cream, refined carbs between 1,000 and 1,400, cheese and sugar and soft drinks 17 to 1,800 calories per pound, Junk food and chips, 2,300. Fried foods, 2,500. Nuts and seeds and nut butters like peanut butter and almond butter are 2,800 calories per pound. Milk chocolate, 3,000. Butter, 3,200. And oils are 4,000, calories per pound. So that's how foods are weighing in when we look at calorie density. Now, the American Cancer Institute and the World Cancer Research Fund, they recommend that we lower the average calorie density of our diet to 567 calories per pound, which allows us to eat freely of the starches and veggies and fruits and whole grains and beans and legumes. And of course, that's without the addition of sugars and fats and things. And for many people, those higher calorie dense plant foods like avocados and nuts and nut butters, those can still be used sparingly because that average is spread out during the, over the day. So it's okay to use those higher fat plant foods as a condiment, for example, like put a few slices of avocado in your burrito or toss a few walnuts in your oatmeal. But the foods that are higher in calorie density also have a much higher fat content. So if you're trying to accelerate your weight loss or reverse a chronic condition, sometimes those higher fat plant foods are either best eliminated or at least greatly reduced. So here's an example of what 500 calories looks like in your stomach. You've probably seen this before. There on the left is 500 calories of oil, followed then by cheese and then meat and then potatoes, beans, and rice, and then fruits and veggies. And keep in mind that your empty stomach is about the size of your fist. You keep that in mind when you're looking at these charts. And it's important that we don't starve ourselves, but it's important that we don't stuff ourselves either because our stomachs can expand to accommodate large meals when we overeat. So when I'm doing this presentation in the general public, sometimes people will ask me, are you suggesting that we eat carbs like rice and potatoes? And I will say, yes, I'm suggesting that because not all carbs are created equal, right? Carbs are not the enemy, not all carbs anyway. Which carbs are the enemy? Well, there's a big difference between complex carbs and refined carbs. So the complex carbs are the whole plant foods we've been talking about, and the refined carbs are those processed foods made with stripped and refined flours, refined sugars, added fats and salts, like pastries and white bread and snack cakes and cookies and soda pop and chips. Those are the refined carbs. So for good health and for weight loss, we want to focus on the complex carbs and avoid those refined carbs. Carbs don't make us fat. And, people will say that to me often out in the general public. Don't carbs make us fat? Well, it depends, right? Again, we want to stick to the complex carbs. As Dr. McDougall said all the time, carbs don't make us fat. Fat makes us fat, especially with the refined carbs with their added fats and sugars. And here's my potato slide that I like to use. Potatoes are nutritious, they're calorie dilute, they're a complex carb, and only 1% of the calories in a potato comes from fat until we fry the potato in grease to make fries, which is then 46% fat, or we convert the potato into potato chips, which is 56% fat, or we smother the potato with butter and cheese and sour cream and bacon bits, which adds a big dose of fat and a big dose of cholesterol too when we're adding all those animal foods. So as you can see, it's not the potato at 1% fat that is typically adding to our weight struggles. It's when we process the potato into a refined carb junk food or we douse it with high fat toppings. That's where we get into trouble. But fortunately, we know there's a lot of really good ways we can top our potatoes and stay healthy. So any questions right now, Jennifer, before I go on to talk about another quiz? I have a little quiz for you next.
Yeah, well, I love that we get to take a little break in between. And if anyone has a question, please feel free to put it in the chat. But for those people that are new to hearing about this way of eating and living, I was just wanting you to maybe go a little bit more into the difference between what vegan is versus what whole food plant-based is, because you were talking about certain processed foods that are vegan, right? And I think that vegan is a term that is now more normalized. I've seen the word vegan on restaurant menus and stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean help with weight loss and different things. So what would you say if somebody didn't know the difference? Like, how do you explain that just a little bit?
I think it would be the added fats and sugars to the product. If like French fries, for example, we just talked about French fries in the potato slide. Those are definitely vegan, especially if the oil used to cook the potato was vegan, vegan oil. But is that a healthy food for us? Not really, right? Because it's packed with fat and it's 46% fat as opposed to 1% fat in the potato. The added sugars are another reason. In the label reading class, I go into that in depth about which products we need to know how to read a label if we're going to be shopping for vegan food in the store, because many products are filled with a lot of technically vegan ingredients, but they're not necessarily ingredients that promote health. Um, I'll use Dia cheese slices just as an example. So in the label class, we go through the label, we look at what's in the Dia cheese, and we find out that Dia cheese is not only 64% fat, but all of it is saturated fat. So is that something we really want to eat? Something that high in saturated fat. So it comes down to label reading and to asking questions in the restaurant.
Yeah, and we recently talked about how you and I got together for the 2025 Vegan Health Bundle. And if you were somebody that purchased that label reading that you're talking about was in there. But if you didn't get it, maybe there's a way that they could purchase it. And you could talk about that later. There is a question that came in, video 1000 nights, welcome. What does she think about snacking versus fixed meals?
It depends on if you're hungry. It depends on many things. That question could be loaded. What are the snacks? Number one, is it grapes or is it chocolate chips? So what is the snack? Is it late at night? What time of night are you craving it? Are you truly hungry or craving? So there's a lot of questions there I would have for that. But typically, if you're hungry, great. Elmo, eat less more often, right? That's one of the acronyms I've learned long ago, that if you need a little snack in the afternoon, have a snack. If you're hungry, have a snack, no doubt.
I love that. Elmo, eat less more often. I haven't heard that. I love that. Great question. And yeah, and I guess it would also depend where you are in your journey, right? And, so if video 1000 nights, if you want to elaborate on anything, please feel free to do that and we can revisit a deeper question about it. But yeah, that's great. So if nobody else has any questions, we're good to move on. And this is fun.
All right. Well, here's my little quiz for you today.
Okay.
And most of you probably know this, but which food do you think here contains the most fiber? So we've got 4 ounces each of milk, pork chops, salmon, or an egg. Or is it a trick question? See my little note there to be careful because this could be a trick question. So you can just put the answer in the chat. This is just for grins. There's no prize or anything, but which food there would you say contains the most fiber?
Oh,
And
wow.
and I will move on to the answer when you tell me, Jennifer.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to give everybody a minute to put something in the chat. And while I'm waiting for a second, VG, welcome, says the label course is very informative and important. I've learned so much from it. I just wanted to share that nice comment about your label course. And so as far as your pop quiz, does anybody have any? Oh, Jill Caperton says none. And
Okay.
I would have to agree, and you let us know if we are right or where we are with this.
You are right. It was a trick question because animal-based foods like the milk, pork chops, salmon, and eggs contain 0 grams of fiber. And the same goes for chicken and cheese and yogurt and ice cream and bakery items.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
great. And then else says, I see the salmon has a green sprig on it. So I chose that, and that's great. Then in this case, what would you say? Would that qualify as also being correct?
Only if she ate the sprig. She might get some
Okay.
fiber. Yeah.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
So fiber is only found in plant foods, and it is so crucial to our health. And all of those plant foods that are low in calorie density that we just talked about are packed with health promoting fiber as well. But less than 3% of Americans are getting the minimum RDA of about 32 grams of fiber a day. That's the current RDA. In fact, most Americans are getting about half of that, about 15 to 17 grams a day, because they're eating a fiberless chicken diet, beef, chicken, fish, hot dogs, and cheese, and processed cookies and snack cakes. There's no fiber in any of those foods. And so, unfortunately, they're setting themselves up for some risks. So, the healthiest people on earth are eating about 45 grams of fiber a day from their food. And it's not unusual for whole food plant-based eaters, oops, let me get to that part. Yeah, are getting 50, 60, or even more grams of health promoting fiber each day because, again, plants are the only source of fiber. So, fiber is what fills us up and keeps us satiated, and it's necessary for sustained weight loss. And we'll see why in just a minute. So, think back to that calorie density chart and the pictures of the full stomachs. They were filled with high fiber plants. So fiber, oops, I am must have there. Oh yeah, fiber helps regulate our blood sugar levels. It lowers our cholesterol levels, prevents polyps and diverticulitis, relieves constipation, reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease and cancer too, because fiber helps carry out excess hormones from our system. And those hormones that would stay in our system if we're not eating enough fiber to carry them out. So, in addition to all of those health benefits, fiber helps with weight loss efforts too. So, there are two types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. And just as the name implies, soluble fiber dissolves in water, but insoluble fiber does not dissolve. And plant foods often contain both types of fiber, and both types are very important. So fiber slows down digestion, it adds bulk to our diets, it keeps our bellies full without adding those extra calories. Again, regulates our blood sugar, sustains our energy. It boosts our gut health because our good gut bacteria thrive on fiber. That's good food for your bacteria. Fiber is good gut food. Oatmeal, beans, lentils, whole grains, quinoa, peas, all of these foods are really, really good for fiber. So when it comes to weight loss, it's difficult to overconsume high fiber foods. When you think of a bowl of split pea soup or black bean soup that has about 14 grams of fiber per bowl, it's hard to eat two big bowls of that soup, right? Or you'd feel like you're going to explode typically, and that's the fiber. So it is that for every 14 grams of fiber we consume, calorie intake is usually reduced by about 10%. So that's why we get full quicker, we stay full longer, and we're reducing our calorie intake as well because of the calorie density. So that is why weight loss can occur naturally and without hunger or deprivation. So a quick note here about man-made fiber like Benefiber and Fiber One. So there's products on the market, right, that are meant to boost our fiber, and those products will boost your fiber intake, but they don't offer the same benefits as when we get our fiber directly from food. So those functional fibers are created in a lab. They're not they're not from a plant, they're made in a plant. So when we add a variety of plant foods to our meals by prepping recipes that are filled with fiber, we're going to get a lot of nutrients. Okay. Oh, there's my little thing about man-made fibers. That's what we just talked about. So any questions there, Jennifer?
Yeah, and I'll just say, Video 1000 Nights just said that that's hilarious about the sprig, and that was really fun and good. So yeah, let's see. I wrote down a couple little things here. Okay, for somebody that is not familiar, why? Why does fiber prevent polyps?
Because my mom used to call it roughage. It carries
Oh,
things out
yes.
of your body, right? Like oatmeal is a good soluble fiber. It carries things out of our digestive system, carries things out of your colon. It scrubs the walls of your colon and your intestines.
So when you're eating a lot of fiber, the
Mhm.
reason that it would prevent polyps, I think, is because it's not sitting in there when we don't have enough fiber, right? Doesn't that mean that the food is kind of like standard American diet? There's not a lot of fiber. And if you're eating that, you might not have bowel movements regularly. And then if it's sitting in there, I guess that would give opportunity for growth and things. Yeah. So, okay. Now, this isn't really a question, but just kind of a comment regarding gut bacteria. You were talking about gut bacteria, and that isn't that tied to the microbiome?
Absolutely. Yes.
And so the microbiome is really important. We're learning so much about the microbiome, but I've learned that if you don't have it, if you don't have enough fiber, if your gut bacteria isn't properly balanced, it can affect even things like the immune system. And I have found that to be really fascinating, that there is so much to be learned about that. And it's so important to feed it right with the foods that you were talking about. And I just wanted to mention that. Have you heard that at all?
Yes. In fact, in my inflammation class, that's one of the things we talk about because your immune system is where inflammation actually starts. Your immune system, if you're eating things that the body doesn't see as food, like a foreign object, your immune system is rushing cells out to try to correct the problem. And that's when the immune system becomes overactive, and it all starts in the gut. It all starts
Yeah.
with the gut.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then you also talked about, fiber like that we can buy over the counter that is a scoopable powder or whatever. And
Mhm.
I always think of food, whole food, as little packets, right? They're filled. They come just perfect, just how they are, right? And it's all in here. But when we start extracting or creating something to mimic it, it actually throws other things off in the system. So I love that you brought that up. To that when people consider eating the food instead of scooping something that may be made in a lab or somewhere else like that. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because when you eat the whole food, you're getting all the things along with the fiber. So your body knows how to process the whole food and the fiber, and you're not just scooping man-made, man-processed fiber into your system.
Right, right. And
Mhm.
this is a great course for people that have never heard about this, people that have fallen off, maybe you're struggling in some way, or a memory, a reminder. And so also, if you're in the chat and you don't have a question, but you want to have a comment and add to something, please go ahead and put that in there as well. And so, yeah, I'm ready to continue on. This is great.
Okay, well, let's look at some high fiber meals here. So if you are the cook of the house, as many of us are, I just want to show some recipes here that are packed with fiber. There's lentil sloppy joes, cheesy Mexican tortilla bags, stir fries, mushroom pot pie, peanut noodles with veggies, a plant-based macaroni and cheese, tacos, creamy chili pasta, which is delicious, even pizza, carrot cake muffins, sundaes and sorbets, chocolate mousse, barbecued lentil loaf with potatoes and gravy, cheesy broccoli soup. Yes, there's ways to make delicious cheesy dishes that do not have any dairy. Plant-based burgers and African peanut stew and black bean lentil taco soup, my favorite. Lasagna roll-ups, some hearty chilies, chickpea salad sandwiches, stuffed peppers. And the reason I show all that and talk about a daily menu is because some people that may be not familiar with this way of eating aren't aware of how awesome the recipes can be and the variety of foods that we eat. We're not just eating salaries and celery sticks and tree bark, as I've been asked in some of my presentations. What do you guys eat? Twigs? No, we eat a variety of delicious, delicious meals. And a daily menu that would be really high in fiber would be oatmeals with blueberries and all the trimmings, or salad and creamy potato soup, or a black bean soup for lunch, stuffed peppers or lasagna for dinner, and maybe an optional healthy dessert if you're still hungry after that. So many options. And I just like to put some of those slides in there as a reminder that the foods we eat are amazing.
Yeah, you're making me hungry for sure. And that's
Oh,
really funny that that people have, asked you about tree bark.
I know. Yeah, they
And
don't
you're
know.
right. It isn't just salad. Salad is a big important part, but it's very
Mhm.
satiating. And so thank you for sharing those pictures. My mouth is watering.
All right, let's move on with weight loss tips more. So remember that calorie density chart that we looked at before, and we looked at those oils there, the left-hand column. Um, let's talk about those extracted oils, the most calorically dense food on the planet. And really, I'm hesitant to call oil a food because really all it is the extracted fat from a food. So I'm sure all of you probably know that that's what oils are the pure liquid fat that has been extracted or pressed from olives or vegetables or nuts or seeds or coconuts or fish. So as mentioned, olive oils, well, not olive oils, all oils weigh in at 4,000 calories per pound. They are highly refined products, and again, 100% pure liquid fat, which has 120 calories per tablespoon and 14 grams of fat. So just 3 tablespoons a day, which is not unusual in the standard American diet because of all the oils and the processed foods that we eat and the bakery items and the salad dressings and the restaurant food. It's really easy to get 3 tablespoons a day when you're eating that way, and that can lead to 3 extra pounds per month without adding any bulk to the food, basically just adding fat to the food. So when I talk about that 14 grams of fat, so Dr. Bernard and others recommend that we get 22 to 27 grams of fat per day on a low fat diet. So if you're eating a tablespoon of olive oil, you're over halfway to your fat, for the day. So that's how fatty oils are. And not only are they weight busters, but they're health busters too, because we know that the oils can damage that protective endothelial lining that's on the inside of our arteries. They can impair circulation. They're highly inflammatory. I had to research that for my inflammation class. Even our top cancer researchers have oils listed as a highly inflammatory food, and they're known to clot blood as much as animal fats do. So, plus a diet that's high in fat overall, is the root cause of type 2 diabetes and dementia, fatty liver disease, and so much more. So I used to use oils all the time. I'm an Italian. I grew up in a house where when the pan came out, the big jar of olive oil came out too. And so for years, I fried and sauteed and did everything in oil. But, now that we know better about oils, we avoid that. So other high fat foods to avoid would be margarines, which if you read the label, are many of them are all oil. Margarines are made with all oils. Butter is also 100% fat. Cheese, 70%. Sour cream, 63%. High fat dressings like ranch. I see people have this big, lovely salad, and then they're pouring ranch dressing on the top, which is 75% fat. So we need to learn how to prepare and purchase foods without the added fats and oils, especially for weight loss. So, how would that apply to you? Well, if you regularly eat out at restaurants, which are known to add a lot of fats to their food, and it doesn't matter if it's a fast food place or a gourmet restaurant, they're all adding fats to the food to make them tasty. So check the menu for the whole plant foods and the veggie soups and the portobello mushroom sandwiches and the healthy side dishes. Often you can build a really healthy meal just from the side dishes on the menu. You have to look for those. And then ask about the hidden oils in the dressings and in the sauces, because a lot of times the products do contain oil. The Mexican restaurant in our town, they put sour cream in the guacamole, which you wouldn't think that would be the case, but you have to ask about those things. And then also make sure you ask how the food is prepared. Request that your food be steamed or baked or maybe grilled over a dry skillet. And of course, you want to avoid anything fried or sauteed in oils. And restaurants are often very willing to work with you, especially if you call ahead and tell them that you're following a special diet for health reasons, because you are. That's not a lie. You are following a special diet because of health reasons. Now, what if you're the shopper of the house when it comes to oils? And here again, we want to read the label and avoid the products which are oils. So here is a picture of Earth Balance butter. I used to buy this all the time before I knew any better. But if you check the ingredient list there, you will see that almost the entire product is comprised of oils. There's palm fruit oil, soybean oil, canola oil, and olive oil. And this product is 100% fat. You can tell there because in the nutrition facts box, you see where it says calories are 80, like about the fourth or fifth line down, calories are 80. Calories from fat are 80. That means the product is 100% fat. So in the label class too, I explain how you can tell how fatty a product is with a quick calculation. So what about if you use oils when you cook, like I used to do all the time? And I'm sure Jennifer has probably showed you this too. Well, to saute, you would just heat a dry skillet on high, add your veggies, and then add tiny amounts of water or vegetable broth, just enough to prevent sticking. Because if you put too much liquid in, you're going to be steaming the veggies rather than sauteing them. So just keep flipping those veggies and adding the liquid a little bit at a time until you get to the desired tenderness that you want. And then for baked goods, replace oil with unsweetened applesauce. That happens to be my go-to, and I just use a one-for-one replacement. So if a recipe calls for a third cup of oil, I just use a third cup of unsweetened applesauce. And you know those little six-pack containers of applesauce? One of those is about a third of a cup. So I also have a YouTube video on that, how to saute, roast, and bake without oil. So let's stop here. What do you think, Jennifer, about any of that? And what about your cooking methods to avoid
Yeah,
oil?
and I'll get into that, but there is a question in the chat from Video 1000 Night says, for the people that lost a lot of weight and kept it off for 3 years and things seemed easy, then something changed and it got hard. What usually causes the change? It felt like eating similar. I felt like eating similarly, I think is what, yeah.
What was that last comment about eating similarly?
It says it felt like eating similarly. I think Video 1000 Nights maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, was saying that maybe they're wanting to eat, go back, regress maybe. But please let us know what that last sentence was. But basically, if people lost a lot of weight, kept it off for 3 years, and it seemed easy. Something changed, they're not sure, and now it seems to be more difficult. Do you have any suggestions as to what would cause that to happen, is the question.
Well, actually see that all the time in my coaching business, Jennifer, and maybe you do too, because the people that are calling me for help have lost weight on a whole food plant-based diet, but now the weight has come back. And it could be a lot of reasons. We'd have to look at the food diary. What is sneaking back in? Are things sneaking back in? What's changed? What has changed over your food intake? Also, there's some mental components too. Are you an emotional eater? Or is there something causing you to take in more food than you need? Maybe you're still eating the right food, but you're just taking in more food than your body needs. So again, it's an open-ended question that I'd need a lot of more detail to give a one size, answer there. But It's
Yes.
not an uncommon thing. Do you find that as well, Jennifer?
Yes, and so we have a follow-up to that. Video 1000 Nights says, I felt I was eating similarly in both time frames, but gaining weight in second part. Okay, so if you want to add anything to that, but I would agree with you that there's a mental component that could be playing a part. Just to share, to be perfectly transparent, I, recently went through the loss of my father. And I also now have another close family member that has been diagnosed with, we're dealing with a lot of health stuff. And I, noticed, oh, I'm reaching for something that I wouldn't normally. What is happening? And I think I was looking for comfort in an old behavior. And so whatever, your situation is, that's something maybe to look at and consider. But if that is not the case, then I don't know if there's something more that you could add, although you did already say that you might need some other things. Maybe the way they're eating is changing a little bit. We get comfortable in certain areas, right? So revisiting that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and our nuts sneaking back in, or is more restaurant food sneaking back in. So there's a lot of things that it could be. I have a chapter in my book called 12 Common Barriers to Change, that even when people have success, some of these barriers can sneak back in. Some of them are mental and some are physical. So it would depend on your situation, and maybe a food diary. Start keeping a food journal to track what you're eating and see what's changed there.
Yeah, I think those are great ideas. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Vidi
Mhm.
1000 Nights, because we're all in here to help you and to help anyone. And if you would like more help, you could reach out to either one of us for some coaching. But if not, that's just something to look at, right? And writing it out,
Mhm.
and just maybe even taking a step back before you eat and just kind of
Mhm.
look at what's going on. Are you really eating because you're hungry? And are the choices really the choices that have made you successful up to this point, and things like that. And so you had asked me a little bit about cooking with oil. There was a time when I was all about, specially pressed. I don't even remember anymore. Extra virgin, whatever. And I really thought that that was lubricating my joints and keeping me healthy. But truly, I learned later that, like what you said, there was a lot of inflammation. And I didn't know it, but it was causing sinus issues and all kinds of trouble for me, including tumors. And it's sneaky. And we were taught that it's okay and it tastes good, but honestly, I I don't think oil tastes good. I've never thought to drink a cup of oil, for you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
we drizzle a little on there, because I feel like that's what we've kind of been taught to do. But you're right, in that you can be successful without that. And then you can eat more and you don't have as many calories, right? Because you were talking about 4,000 calories in a pound.
Mhm.
Now, nobody's going to eat a pound, but even the tablespoon you were talking about, I was thinking of grabbing my tablespoon, just to show three of these. I mean, you know when you look at real food, like, this is going to be much more filling, and there's not going to do anything in terms of making you satiated, but it is all those calories. So I thought that was really good. Did you want to add anything to that?
I know. I think you covered it there really well. Yeah, calories and fat, basically.
Yeah, and so the last thing that I thought of is, when you were talking about restaurants, and that's
Mhm.
so important for people to be prepared and understand how to find something on the menu when you're not sure what's going on behind the scenes. And I just want to tell you that I have learned with ordering rice, because I always thought, oh, rice is a safe thing, maybe rice and beans. I always ask, how do you cook your rice? And in for an example, at the Cheesecake Factory, which I have been to before on vacation, and they said with the white rice they added, I think they said sugar.
Mm,
And I said, do you have any other rice? So they said, yeah, we have a brown rice. Oh, how do you cook the brown rice? Don't assume that they're going to
mhm.
do everything the same. And you know what? They went back to the kitchen and they came back and they say, you know what? With the brown rice, we only use water to cook it. So I was able
Mhm.
to order a side of brown rice and skip the white rice. And I didn't have to consume anything that I didn't want to. So you've got to be a detective
You
at the
do.
restaurant.
You do. Yeah, so I've got a YouTube video on that, how to eat out and how to be a super sleuth, because like the rice at Chipotle, they cook that in oil, just so
Okay.
everybody knows. You have to ask. And then I have something called STEM, scan the entire menu, like for those side dishes. Like if you see a chicken dish with seasoned potatoes, ask if you can get just the potatoes or the asparagus that you wouldn't see anywhere else on the menu, but sometimes you'll see an entree with a side dish. One side dish was pineapple salsa. Oh, could I have a potato with pineapple salsa? That would be different to consider, things like that. So, yeah, restaurants, I don't think we've eaten out for a long, long time. We don't typically go out anymore. It's just too difficult and expensive. And yeah.
Yeah, it's always better if you can make it at home. But there are occasions when
Hmm.
you might find yourself in that situation, and so it's really good to touch on that. And
Yeah.
Video 1000 Night says thank you, and of course we're here. We're all a family together, and I appreciate the question. So yeah,
Should we go on, Jennifer? It's almost an hour. Do you want me to keep going or
yeah, I'm good if you're good, and we have a lot of viewers and activities, so
okay.
I'd say sure.
All right. Well, let's go on to the next tip for safe permanent weight loss, which is don't drink your calories, right? It sounds very basic, but a lot of people do. Sugary drinks have been blamed as perhaps the single largest driver of the obesity epidemic when you think about it. So sometimes it's referred to as liquid candy, all of these things. Good, clean water should always be our first beverage of choice, or an herbal tea, a green tea. But let's look a little deeper at some of those other beverages, especially like the sweetened fruit juices and sports drinks and energy drinks and coffee drinks, right? Our bodies don't seem to register liquid calories as well as they do from solid food. Like when we eat solid food, our bodies take that into account and it can adjust our appetite. But when we drink extra calories, our bodies hardly regulate our appetites at all, right? We usually don't feel full after we drink a sugary drink. So, over half the population now, over 2 years old and up, they're consuming sugary drinks on any given day. And that number goes up. 65% of boys aged 2 to 19 are drinking really a lot of sugary drinks every day. So the American Cancer Society, let's see, yeah, they have some remarks on that. They said that sugary drinks are the leading source of added sugars and calories in the American diet. And they recommend that we should reduce those sugary drinks because excess body weight is associated with an increased risk of 13 types of cancer. So it's not just the weight, we want to be aware of this for the because the obesity that these drinks cause are, leading to other health problems at all as well. So how does this apply to you? Well, here's how to tell how much sugar is in a drink. Now, there are 4 grams of sugar in 1 teaspoon. And so to identify how much sugar is in a product, you simply find the grams of sugar listed on the nutrition facts box there. And here we see this is Pepsi. There are 41 grams of added sugar. So that's what we're interested in is the added sugar. If a product had raisins or something in it, that would be a natural sugar and that would be listed under total sugars. So we want to look at added sugars. Then we find the grams of added sugars divided by 4. And here we see Pepsi has 41 grams of sugar divided by 4, and that would be, oops, I shouldn't have done that. That would be 10, right? 41 divided by 4 is roughly 10. So this pop contains the equivalent, one can, a 12-ounce can of pop contains 20, or I'm sorry, contains 10 grams, 10 teaspoons of sugar. Let me say that again. So 41 grams of sugar divided by 4 is 10. So one can of pop has 10 teaspoons of sugar. And again, this is for a 12-ounce can. If you were drinking a 20-ounce bottle, that would be up to 16 teaspoons of sugar. And we can tell by the ingredient list here, highlighted in yellow, that the source of that sugar is high fructose corn syrup and sugar, which is refined sugar. So both of those are sugars that we definitely want to avoid. Again, there are natural sources of sugar too in a product like fruit, dates, bananas, apples, and raisins. And those are not what we're concerned about here. We're looking at added sugars. So that's it for the sugar part of drinks. If there's time, I'll go on, but this could be the end of the presentation unless you want me to go on. But what do you think about the added sugary beverages,
Yeah.
especially
So
like
go ahead.
lattes? Lattes from the coffee shop are super high in sugar too with the syrups. And I was going to expand on that a little bit more, but I didn't have time to look that up. I just know that I've seen those statistics before. And I used to always get a mocha latte. Like years ago, this is my little mocha latte story. I had gotten myself kind of hooked on those, and I was only ordering half the syrup that they would typically put in there. I would order decaf coffee, plant milk, and half the syrup. So I thought that was pretty good, but no. Even that amount of sugar was enough to hook me to keep going back and back and back and planning my whole routine about when I was going to be at the coffee shop. I mean, I actually had it built into my routine. And when I was writing my book years ago, it occurred to me when I was on the part about food addictions, I thought, you know what? I've got a little monkey on my back here with this mocha latte thing going on. And so I had to take steps to pull away from that. But
Did
just
it,
the sugar and the mocha was enough to get me hooked on that.
and so just quickly, did it take a long? How long did it take for you to get that monkey off your back?
Not too long. Just switched over to making my own coffee at home, and yeah, I was determined, so it didn't take me too long to switch. And I'm not saying I will never have a coffee when I'm out. Sometimes I will, but it's few and far between. It's not like a pull for me anymore like it was. But that sugar is so addictive,
So addictive. It
very
so is.
addictive.
Yes, Apple a Day, hello and welcome. Apple a Day says, with sodas, etc., I always think about the dyes. This is really good too, and the havoc that they cause to the hormones, to our hormones and nervous system, more harm than just added sugars. Very,
Absolutely.
very
Yeah.
good point. Yes.
Yeah.
And,
If
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, if you did get the bundle, go to that label reading course. There's a whole thing in there on dyes.
Yes, yes, that's
Mhm.
an amazing course. You mentioned sugary drinks. When you were talking about that, I was thinking that a lot of times they don't quench your thirst either. They get you to want to drink more because you're actually like becoming more dehydrated, and some people don't even know that. And plus, then if you're trying to lose weight, right, they're higher in calories. Like you said, your body doesn't even recognize that it's food, so your needs aren't being met, and so you will continue to want to put stuff in there. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned the other issues that it can cause, including cancer and other health issues. People don't think about that when they think of sugar. um,
Mhm.
and then the last thing is, I just want to bring attention to, when you were showing the labels, and I really appreciated that, that you should be careful because they label people, whoever's putting those labels on there, sugar can be called other names.
Mm.
And, if we just look for sugar, and we don't see it, it can come in so many different names, and it could be listed in like 5 or 6, lots of things. And so just to be aware of that. And also, you were talking about 10 teaspoons. I mean, here is a teaspoon, and I was thinking, how many teaspoons, and I don't know this, if anyone knows this, make up how many, is it a half cup? How much will that fill? And then you have this gigantic thing, and you can really visualize what in the world am I doing here to my body? So I thought that was all really good things. And then we do have another question. Jill Caperton says, what about kombucha? Isn't it good for our gut?
I'm not familiar with kombucha too much. It's not something that I use or have ever used, so I'll have to defer to you, Jennifer, on this one.
Yeah, I don't drink it often. I think I have some friends in our local plant-based group that make it from scratch, and I'm pretty sure it's a fermented drink, and it probably is good for your gut. And so, but I'm not the expert on that either, but we could certainly look into that and see what we can find with that. Yeah, when I first was trying to heal, I just stuck with water. Here I am still sticking with water.
Yeah, me too.
And you got yours. And, there was groups that we were getting together with for plant food and potlucks. And when I learned that they were making this, and they would say, do you want to taste it? And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't this right, Todd, that it would ferment and it could actually have traces of alcohol just from it?
That is my understanding, yes.
Yeah, and so I chose not to do it, but Todd tried it. And then I think eventually I did try it like a year later. But I that's the extent of it. So, Elle says, and how about those natural flavors? Fermented sweet tea with flavors. And what do you think about the natural flavors, Cyd?
Natural flavors versus artificial. So artificial, it can be either plant or animal. Natural sugars are typically, I've got that in the label reading course, and I don't want to misspeak right here, but yeah, it depends. If the product says vegan on the cover, at least you know that the natural flavor is not from an animal, right? Because it could be something from an animal product.
Yeah. Well, maybe if you are trying to lose weight, another thing that I find helpful to share with people is replacing it with, water that maybe you put cucumbers in, or you can flavor it, let it steep in there, or not steep if it's not hot, but just fruit like berries, strawberries, things like that. Lemon, I always like lemon water. And so it gives it a different taste as your palate is changing. But you really will notice a difference, and it will really help with your weight loss and also health issues, I believe, like you said, by just making that one change even, right?
Yeah, another tip I've heard is to buy fizzy water, carbonated water, some type of fizzy water, and maybe add a little unsweetened cranberry juice or something to it. So you've got some fizz there if that's what you're missing. A lot of people say that's what they're looking for is the fizz.
Oh, that's very true. And I think you can even put like California balsamic or those thicker balsamics. I've seen that done to give it like a little flavor, and put it in a fancy glass or something if you're out with people. Great tips.
Yeah, I've tried that. That's very good. You can buy
Yeah,
little peach flavored balsamic vinegar and add it to the fizz water. It's really, really good on ice in the summer.
Oh, you've done that. Okay.
Yeah.
It makes me want to even put some sliced peaches in there. You can really make it wonderful. And so let's see. Apple a Day said natural quote unquote flavors can be animal too. It's kind of gross. I won't put details. Okay. Yeah. So if that's something that you weren't aware of, now you are. And so if you want to go for like just a little bit longer, or we can stop now, I'm going to leave that up to you.
let's see. Let me scroll ahead here. Let's see. Not what to eat. We were talking about hunger versus cravings. Maybe we should talk about that. Or
Sure.
all right. So let me get to this slide. This was not just what we eat, but how we eat. So, in the plant-based world, we always say, don't starve yourself, don't stuff yourself. Eat when you're physically hungry and stop when you're comfortably full. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how hungry are you? And this might tie into the previous question that we had about, when we're starting to gain weight, maybe we're eating when we're not really hungry. That could be a thing. So I know if there's something sitting out on my counter, I'm going to grab it every time I walk by. So we have to be aware of our environment as well. Let's take a look at this hunger and fullness scale. This is a scale from 1 to 10, and of course 5 is kind of neutral there. This is just a tool maybe to help us describe the various degrees of hunger that we may be feeling. So 5 is neutral. You're neither hungry nor full. Level 4 is where we're starting to think about food. Level 3 is where our stomach is starting to growl. Level 2, there's a lot more stomach growling going on. And at level 1, we are ravenous, past the point of hunger, where we might actually have a headache. So, we don't ever want to get to that. And then on the fullness side, of course, 6 would be you're lightly full, and you'll be hungry again in maybe 1 to 3 hours. 7, you're moderately full. 8, you're comfortably full, but you do not want to eat more. And 9 is that you're stuffed, you're past satiety. And 10 is where you've made yourself sick, you've eaten so much. And so it's normal for our hunger and fullness to fluctuate all day long. So if we try to stay in the moderate range, like between 3 to 7, that's going to help us avoid those extremes with hunger and fullness. So if we start eating when we're lightly moderately hungry, and we're more likely to stop when we're lightly to moderately full, right? So if we wait till though if we're ravenous, we're probably going to eat till we're really full. I know that happens to me. If you let yourself get too hungry, that can be a trigger for many people that I've helped coach. So they say, I let myself get too hungry. By the time I get home, I just am cramming food into my face because I'm so hungry, and then they overeat. So this little scale can serve as a guide and to help identify our hunger and satiety signals. And I like this thing, the long-lived Okinawans in Japan, they have this saying, they live well into old age and they have the highest percentage of centenarians than anywhere in the world, but they follow a practice called Hari Hachi Bu that teaches people to stop eating when they're 80% full. So it's something they say before meals, and it's just a reminder to stop eating when your stomach is 80% full. And I thought that was interesting. One of their proverbs says that 8 parts of your stomach are for food, are to sustain the man, and the other 2 sustain the doctor. So wouldn't it be great if we followed that example, right? When we really were mindful of how full we are as we're eating.
Wow, yes, definitely. And I have experienced that too, where I wait too long and then I'm just trying to prepare something, but I'm still, looking around because I waited too long and maybe eating something. Yeah.
Yeah. So hunger, if we're truly hungry, we're seeking nutritious food, right? Looking for a stew or a bean soup or something. If we're craving, it's going to push us toward the sweets and the fatty foods. That's typically one way we can distinguish. What am I searching for? So I think I'll go to my end slide now, Jennifer, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
This has been so fantastic. I love your presentation. So,
You
yeah.
are so welcome. As you can see, I had way too much. I'll just do the final recap. How's that?
Okay, yeah, let's put that back up. There we go.
Okay, so the final recap for weight loss, safe and permanent weight loss, is to switch to the whole food plant-based diet, which is high in fiber, packed with nutrition, which provides all the protein, fat, carbs we need in the right amounts. And that is a key factor. Beware of carbophobia, where you're avoiding all carbs, right? We want to choose complex carbs and avoid those refined carbs. Avoid the added oils, which are diet busters and health busters. Focus on calorie density instead of calorie counting, which allows you to fill your belly with much more food for far fewer calories. Learn to tune into your hunger and satiety signals. Drink lots of good clean water and avoid drinking your calories with those sugary drinks. We didn't really talk about this. Preloading each meal with some low calorie density foods like a salad or a bowl of bean soup or something. Front loading your calories where you're eating more food earlier in the day and stopping your food intake after 7 o'clock for at least 12 hours. That's like an intermittent fasting practice. We didn't really get to talk about that in depth today. But those are the tips. I will just put my website up there. If anybody has any questions for me, you can reach me through the website. There's a free class too on my website, 3 food mistakes that lead to painful joints and extra pounds and health problems the doctors aren't solving. There's a free PDF for 10 free dessert smoothies, and then signed copies of my book, which my book is going to be, this is the 5th anniversary of my book. So starting on Wednesday, I actually have a promotion going. If you order a book from my website, not only will I send it to you for free if you're within the domestic United States, but you can get any one of my courses for free. And those are valued at $39 to $49. So you can get a free course if you order my book during the promotion period, which starts on Wednesday. So that's it. I'm going to stop sharing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much. That was amazing. And it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and it was good to hear things over that I knew, and hopefully, other people watching did the same thing. And I love that you have your book coming up on the 5th anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing. And so if you haven't read Cyd's book, check it out. It sounds like a great deal that you're offering all of those things, the free shipping in the US and some other courses. So if anybody have any last questions before we log off here, gonna look in the chat again. Let me just see. And no, I think people are just no other questions or anything. And so, oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Jennifer and Cyd from Apple a Day. Appreciate that. And, I just want to thank you again, Cyd, for your time. It was fun. And I just also want to remind people that don't forget to eat your greens. And of course, give plants a chance. They truly are amazing wonders that we really strive and need and thrive on. So I want to thank you so much. We've got a lot of people saying thank you in the chat. And any last words that you would like to share, Cyd, before we sign off?
I always end with, life is too short to spend the last 5, 10, or 20 years dealing with preventable health issues. So the you today will thank the you of tomorrow will thank the you of today if you incorporate a healthy diet.
I love it. So true. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We really enjoyed it. This has been a lot of fun, and we will see you next time. So take care, and bye for now, everyone.